Hello, I'm Paul Stryer, and welcome to the SD-WAN Self-Hosted Lab Build video series. In this video, we will start the process of configuring our network. We created 3 control VMs in a previous video, one for vManage, one for vSmart, and one for vBond. We are going to log in to the CLI of each one of these devices and configure a basic configuration for basic connectivity and to set the device role in the network all via CLI. Although Viptela CLI is very similar to Cisco iOS CLI, there are many differences. And this video will start to give you a glimpse of how Viptela CLI commands are formed and their usages. So if you're ready, let's get our nerd on with some CLI. So starting where we left off in a previous video, back at the ESXi console, I'm going to start at vManage. So I'm going to highlight the vManage, right-click it, then find the console from the pop-up menu, and then open a new tab. This will open a new browser tab for me and take me to the console of this virtual machine, which happens to be a vEdge device. The default credentials for Viptela hardware is admin. But in this case, when we put admin in, it will ask us to put in a new password. In this case, I'm just going to put admin in again for the password so it stays admin. But notice when you first come in, it asks you after the first login to put a new password in. Now switching back to the vManage, I've already logged into vManage once before, so that's why I showed you a vEdge first time login so you could see that initial password change. I'm going to log in with admin, and notice it just comes right back to vManage prompt. For all you iOS junkies like me, you're going to be pleasantly surprised to see a lot of the commands will be similar to Cisco iOS, but just when you start to get comfortable, things will change because the Viptela commands are a lot different and there's a lot of familiarity. So let's do a show run and take a look at the first part of the show run. If you notice at the top, there's a section called System. Now normally, if you want to put a hostname in an iOS, you would just go into config T and type hostname and the name in. But in this case, we'd have to go into config T, type system, and then put our hostname in. So again, there's a system subsection that you have to configure system items in, and then you have to back out to get into the top level and then go to the interface level and so on and so forth. So in the system section, you can see there are things like hostname, user groups, user admin, so we have our admin user right there and the password, and below that we'll see that you can have user logging. And notice that there is a VPN 0 and a VPN 12. We're going to put our interfaces under VPN 0, and then we'll go ahead and put some interfaces under VPN 512 today. And 512 is that one that we use for the management network that's there by default. We don't have to use that for management network, but people tend to do that just because it is the default. Another familiar command is going to be config T. So if I go config T, it puts the system into config mode, and this is where we can start configuring the system. Now I've created a quick little notepad to show us the kind of configuration we need to put in, and for this first router, we'll go ahead and cut and paste this in, and the next couple routers, we'll put them in one command line at a time. So notice if I was to type this stuff in by hand, I would type the command system and hit enter, and that would take me into the subsystem of system. And then I'd put my hostname in and hit enter, and then put my system IP in and enter, organization name. The organization name is that one that we created while we were creating our serial file, and this one needs to match case sensitive to what we typed into the software.cisco.com serial file that we created earlier in the video series. And the SP organization name is for multi-tenant. Notice in our case, we've matched it exactly to the organization name, meaning we're not going to be doing multi-tenant. But if we were doing multi-tenant, we'd have a different SP name than we would for our organization name. Also, you see a site ID. Each site will have an ID, so if I had a branch number 2 with 2 Viptela devices there, and I might have it be a 2 for site ID because I've matched, and I want both those devices to be in the same site ID. And if I had a site 3, I would set up both the devices at that site to say site ID 3. So again, we're going to make site 1 be where our headquarters is, so we're going to put our control there as well, so we'll put them in the same site ID. And that last line of the system section is vBond. And notice I'm doing it to the DNS address of vBond, but either way, I'm telling the vManage the address of vBond. Then when we go further into the config, we would type VPN 0, and that would take us to the subsection of VPN 0. Then I could type in my DNS command. I could put my interfaces on, put my no shut on there, and then I can go VPN 512, which is our management network, and put the interfaces on there. Again, we're going to do a cut and paste for the first router, and then the subsequent routers, we're going to go ahead and do it step by step, and then we'll see it one step at a time so you get a feel for how we do CLI and initial configuration. I'm going to highlight the config that's in my notepad and then right click and copy it. Then I'm going to go back to my CLI or my router, and then I'm going to right click and paste that into the vManage router. Okay, you can see that my config was pasted into the vManage, and there is a little bit of video magic here, because if you look at the very bottom where it says commit and quit, that wasn't in my notepad, but it should have been in my notepad, because when you get to the end of a config and you're done and you're ready to commit this to memory, you type commit and hyphen quit, and notice that it says commit complete. If you made a error somewhere in that config above there, it'll error out and give you a little message letting you know what portion it errored out on. You can go back and fix that and try another commit and quit until you get it correct. So let's do another familiar command called show interface, but I'm going to add a pipe, and then I'm going to put tab so that it formats it on the screen correct. If I didn't do it with the tab, it would just be one big long list of interfaces, but when I put the pipe to tab, it puts it in a nice table format for us. So the first thing that you notice is that we have ETH0, which is set to 10.0.0.30/24, and you can see that that is up and up. The next thing we see is our system. That's our system ID of 10.0.100.30/32, and it's up and up. And then we see that we have an interface on 512 that's set to 10.0.0.31/24, and it is up and up. Now normally you wouldn't have your Ethernet 0 and your Ethernet 1 on the same network, but in this case I have not created my network in my ESXi yet for my 512 network or my management network. I'll probably do that a little bit later in the lab. Don't know if I'll show that in the videos, but I'll create that and I'll switch this address to my management network once I'm ready to set that up. So next I'm going to run the ping command, and I'm going to ping my DHCP/DNS server just to make sure I have connectivity. And look at that, I do have connectivity. Now to stop this, I have to do a Control-C like you would in Linux. It doesn't stop after 5 like an iOS device does. Now let's switch over to our vBond. Notice that it says vEdge, and that's because we installed the vEdge Cloud software. Remember, there was no software for vBond. We use the vEdge software, and then we do some configurations that we'll see here in a couple of seconds that turns it into a vBond. So now we're going to do a config T to get into config mode. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to configure our system. So we're going to click system, and notice that it does a prompt that says config-system. Then I'm going to type host-name and put in the name of my device. Once I enter the device name, I'll hit enter and move on to the next line. Next, I'll enter the command system-IP and the IP address for my system IP and hit enter. Next, I'm going to put in my organization name. Now my organization name has got to match in all of my devices, and it also has to match what we put in the license, and it is case sensitive. So notice I'm putting this in all uppercase, just the same way as I did when we did the serial file. Then I'll press enter and move on to the next command. The next line is what makes this device into a vBond as opposed to being a vEdge. So I type vBond, the IP address for the system IP, and then put the word local, and that's what gives us this device being a vBond. Next, we're going to go back out of system and then in and into the VPN 0 interface. So I'm going to go ahead and type VPN 0. Once I'm in VPN 0, notice that the prompt changes to VPN 0, and then I'm going to put in my DNS information. So I'm going to type in DNS, my IP address, and primary. If I have a secondary DNS, I'd put a second line in that says DNS, IP address of the secondary DNS, and then secondary. Next, I'm going to create my interface and my IP address for that interface. So I'm going to type interface, or INT for short, and then GE0/0. Now, I can't type G0/0 like we do with iOS. It has to be GE, and it has to be lowercase. So you have to type it just like that, or it won't accept it. When you press enter, it'll accept it and let you keep on going, but when you commit the config, it will error out because you put a G or something different than GE lowercase. Next, I'm going to put in the IP address, and notice that the prompt changed to interface GE0/0, and I put in the IP address using the / cider block instead of the dotted decimal subnet mask like we normally do in iOS. Last thing I'll do to this interface is put a no shut on the interface, and then I'm going to type VPN 512 to go to our management interface. Notice the prompt changes again to the new interface. Then I'm going to put in interface ETH0. Notice that it changes the prompt again, and then I'm going to put in my IP address in the same format that we did above. Notice they're in the same subnet. I wouldn't normally do that, but for this particular lab I'm doing that, and I'll change it later. I give a no shut, and then notice I did COMM and I didn't put the whole word commit and quit. So I just wanted to show, just like with iOS routers, as long as there's not an overlapping command, you can use shortened versions of the command and it's okay, it'll take it. And then notice that it said commit complete. If we had messed anything up while creating that config one line at a time, it would have given us an error and tried to tell us an error message that would let us know kind of what we did. We could go back and fix that particular device and try commit and quit again and see if we got it correct that time. You don't have to go back and do the whole thing, but you do need to go back and fix the part that was wrong. And if you don't want to go back and fix it, but you just want to start all over, just type the word clear and then say yes to clear the config, and it will basically get rid of all that config you've created and let you start over again from scratch. Like before, let's do a show interface pipe and then the word tab so that we see it in tab format, our output. So now you can see that we have our GE00, we have our system IP, and we have our ETH0, and they're all up and up. And a quick ping to our DNS DHCP server shows that we are now connected to the network. For a quick test, let's do a ping via DNS to our vManage 2 that we set up just a few seconds ago. And as you can see, everything is healthy on our network to this point. We already know DNS is working, but let's do a quick NS lookup just to show you that command on a Viptela device. So I'm going to put in NS lookup and my DNS name, and notice that it does resolve and gives us our information that we would expect. Now that we have two devices, let's go ahead and go back to our vManage and do an NS lookup for the vBond, and also do a ping for the vBond using our DNS resolution. And as you can see, the NS lookup worked as expected. Now let's go ahead and do the ping. As you can see, the ping was successful as well. Now I'm going to switch over to my vSmart console, and we're going to do the same kind of configuration on the vSmart as we did the other two. So I'm going to go ahead and type config to go into config mode, then system to go into the system section of the config, and then we'll put in our host name just like we did before, but this time we'll do the vSmart instead of the vBond. Next we'll enter our system IP. Now we'll go ahead and put our site ID in. Next, we'll put in our case-sensitive organization name that needs to match the one we put into the serial file when we created that at software.cisco.com. And then we need to put in the vBond information. So we'll put in the vBond and then the address, and I'm going to use the DNS address to get to the vBond. So this is the vSmart getting to the vBond. Next, we'll configure our interfaces, starting with VPN 0. So we'll type VPN 0. Notice that the prompt goes to VPN 0. Then we'll put in our DNS information. Notice that I did not put primary after it this time. It will assume primary for the first one if you don't put anything in. So next, I'm purposely going to make the command be wrong. So I'm going to put interface ETH0, but then I'm going to put an IP address after it, which isn't the correct way to do this CLI command. I'm going to do this just so you can see what the error message looks like after you do it. So again, here it shows you a little arrow underneath where the problem is in the command, and it gives you some explanations down below. And for full disclosure, that was a real brain fart error. I did not do that just to make the video look good. And since I recorded it, I might as well put it in the video. So now I can use the up arrow to do my command over again, and realized I typed too much information on there, so I went up arrow, got rid of the IP address, and now I put interface ETH0, then I put the IP address command in, then I put the no shut command in, and then I will move on to VPN 512. Notice that when I type VPN 512, the prompt changes as it did before. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the interface command in, so I'm going to put interface ETH1, put the IP address command on, then I will put the no shut command on this interface, and then I will do a commit and quit. So as before, I'm going to go ahead and do a show interface pipe, and then the word tab to put it in tablet format. And now we can see that we have a ETH0 and an ETH1 interface and a system interface that are all up and up. Now I'm going to do a ping to my DNS server. That worked. So now I'm going to do a ping to vBond 02 via DNS just to make sure that my DNS resolution is working, and that is working. Now for the fun of it, let's just go ahead and ping the vSmart via DNS, so that way we get the ping in there and we also get the DNS resolution just to make sure everything is working. And as you can see, everything is working in that ping as well. We already know that the DNS resolution is working, but let's go ahead and do an NS lookup just to test it and be thorough. And as you can see, the NS lookup did work. And now a last ping to the vManage 02 just to test that connectivity. And yes, you did hear me correctly. I did use a fart joke in this video. And for all those PC people that were offended by the offending flatulence, I'm sorry. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you for future videos. This is Paul Stryer. Have a good day.